Okay, so in another hotel, always in a hotel, found these papers before I left the house, and I thought it would be a good read. A lot of my life is just like passing thoughts that I jot down either in a notebook or I have all of these flashcards, index cards that like every time I have a thought about something random, I write it down so that later on I can go back to it and like expound on it. But I found this in my notes and I thought it was a cool read. Joel 2:25. And I will restore to you the years that the locust hath eaten, the cankerworm and the caterpillar, and the palmer worm, my great army which I sent among you. As a chronic procrastinator and an obsessive overfeeler, I have always brought this scripture to God in tears. In moments of weeping before God, I have quoted this verse and begged, pleaded with God, and asked him why he has not restored the years, the decades I've lost. Decades lost to living in the moment. Decades lost to letting my emotions run my life, only doing what feels good at the time. And here lies this promise that God will restore the years. So why hadn't he brought it to fruition? Here I am, age 40, still no years restored, but it finally hit me like a freight train. The exact same concept I used for every other scripture I've read. You have to read the Bible. You can't just read the Bible. Words that have literally saved my life. God is specific in his promises, just like the if-then promises of Deuteronomy 28. He doesn't just air empty platitudes. He speaks with specificity because he is detail-oriented. God didn't just promise to restore the years. Just like we do with Deuteronomy 28 promises, we don't stop to read the terms and conditions. God doesn't even have to put it in fine print. He puts it in big, bold letters, and we simply just don't bother reading it. And I will restore to you the years that the locust hath eaten, the cankerworm, and the caterpillar, and the palmer worm, my great army which I sent among you. Not just any years. He details out the different creatures which eat different portions at different times. But it's that little ditty at the end that we overlook. That's the kicker. My great army which I sent among you. God isn't obligated to restore the years I let go into the sky like a balloon release ceremony. He committed to restoring the years eaten by what he sent. Now this is the crux of the whole thing. We think of God as only sending blessings if he's happy, and sending destruction in his moments of extreme rage and wrath. And yet, throughout the Bible, we see countless examples of people who lost things, had things done to them, because God allowed it or even sent what initiated it. Not because he hates us or wants us to suffer, but because he always wants us to grow and sharpen. Iron sharpens iron. You can't be sharpened in a field full of daisies. What's the saying? Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. Good times don't make you stronger. Here's a wild concept. Because of the curse, the fall of man, our nature is chaos. Because that woman could not control her lust for power, we have been cursed to a natural state of suffering. Yet, when God redeems us through salvation, we no longer have chaos as our nature. God promises us peace that surpasses all understanding, not torment. Think about our modern world and the way things are today. Today, we have literally countless options for convenience every single day at our very fingertips. Get food delivered with Uber Eats. Get movies and shows with Netflix. Get dang near everything delivered to your door in as little as 2 hours with Amazon. No more having to cook a meal from scratch. No more driving down to and walking around Blockbuster to find your next entertainment fix. No more waiting in lines at the real store. Literally, almost everything you could ever want at your fingertips at the push of a virtual button on a cell phone screen. Yet, look at what all of that immeasurable convenience has done to society. We no longer know how to work hard or deal with deprivation. And as Abigail Shrier so poignantly points out in her new book, this generation has been over-therapized to believe they cannot do hard things. The metaphorical field of daisies has dulled us into a weakened, good times state, likened much unto Theoden's state when Gandalf called upon him in Rohan. Think of the social justice warriors. Whether they are willing to believe it or not, we are exponentially freer and less racist, bigoted, and hateful today than we ever have been in U.S. history. Yet they crave drama like a junkie fiending for their next hit. Life is so much better, safer, happier, easier, that they feel the desperate urge to create drama out of nothing, to conjure crisis out of thin air, just to maintain their constant existence in that heightened state of arousal that they've become addicted to existing in. They feed off of that negative energy like the aliens in season 2 of Torchwood did with the children. And just like those aliens did, when the batteries ran out of juice, they went looking for more. If you are addicted to being angry and playing the victim, when no one is victimizing you, you'll go out and find someone to accuse of something. Believe me, I speak from experience. This is commonplace. This is the everyman. This is the trap I was caught in for decades, and the years that I have been begging God to restore. But God did not send my emotions to eat away my years. So he is not obligated to restore the years I let them destroy. It wasn't a complete thought. It was just what I was thinking at the time. But that's true. I have, over the years, cried hysterically and begged God to restore all of the years that I've lost. Years that I sat around and just did what felt good in the moment. Nowadays it's sitting and scrolling on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube shorts. But back then it was, playing video games or binge watching, Netflix, or I used to watch every single British crime show that I possibly could. And, all the better if you had it on Netflix, you could binge watch it. You could watch the whole season in one sitting. So entire days of my life would be gone with nothing productive happening because I was wasting time. And all of those years, I would feel, it felt good at the time to just binge watch and, curl up on the couch with your favorite snack and watch a show that is sucking you in. Does that feel great? Yes. But nothing productive happened in those years. When my dad died, I think I was 32 or 33 when my dad died, very suddenly. And that made me realize that there wasn't a big lottery moment that was going to happen to me where somebody would come and, pay off all my debt. There wasn't a benefactor somewhere that was going to die and leave me a bunch of money to pay off all my debt. If I wanted to pay off my debt, I had to work and pay it off. And I just, I racked up all this debt because I just wanted to live in the moment and I wanted to enjoy in the moment. And that's common. I think a lot of people do that. They don't think about the future. And at some point I had to start realizing When my dad died, it made me realize like I was, let's say, 32 and had nothing to show for my life, hadn't made any progress in anything, and if I wanted to be somebody someday, there wasn't going to be some magical windfall somewhere that was going to just like flip my life on its head and all of a sudden I was going to be some great accomplished person. It had to start from scratch. It had to start with me taking accountability for the fact that I had lived my entire life being, just focused on what felt good in the moment. And a lot of this generation lives like that. But I always went back to that scripture and I would always pray, cry hysterically, ugly cry and pray and like ask God, why haven't you given me back all those years? And then I realized that it says, my great army which I sent among you. The different kind, the locust, the cankerworm, the caterpillar, the palmer worm. He sends all of those. And because he sends all of those, he's going to restore those years. He didn't send the emotions that ate up all of my years. They were just, I gave in to them. I had a thought that, hey, wouldn't it be nice tonight to sit on the couch and stuff my face with snacks and watch British crime dramas, and instead of deciding to get up and be productive, I would just follow that thought. And I'm a firm believer that thoughts are the roots of feelings. And the moment a thought comes to your brain, you have a choice whether or not you want to feed it until it grows into a feeling, and then you just follow that feeling wherever it goes, and you cuddle that feeling and nurture that feeling until it takes over your whole life. Or you take dominion of your thoughts, you renew your mind, and you decide, I acknowledge that I'm thinking this thought right now, but I'm not going to give it energy. I'm not going to go where that thought wants me to go. And it took me almost 40 years to come to that realization. But I lived my whole life just following the thoughts and developing them into emotions and then going wherever the emotions demanded, because I was highly emotional. And when you're highly emotional, it feels good to satiate those emotions, whatever it's asking, Like, I would have times where I would feel like crying. I would feel so sad for no reason. I would just feel super sad. And then, so I would put on, depressing music, and it would be like me sitting and petting this sadness until I would just start bawling for no reason, for absolutely no reason. I would be crying about nothing. But I would be crying because I just had this thought that I was sad, and then I developed that into an emotion, and then would just end up a crying mess for no reason. So I've wasted a lot of years doing that, and I'm sad to know that I don't get those years back, but there are still years that God promised to restore, and I'm hopeful for that. Whatever that looks like, whatever those years are that the locusts have eaten, because I haven't yet figured out for me. Maybe for you, like what years those are. But for me, I have not yet figured out what years the locusts have eaten. I think I have an inkling, and it's starting to process. But there's still a promise there. But we have to learn to read the fine print, because God is not Oprah. He doesn't just hand things out to people. The one very cool thing that I thought that a certain now very disgraced preacher with the last name Jakes said was, God doesn't make furniture, he grows trees. And I thought that was cool. I think that's also false, to an extent. I think that sometimes God does give you furniture. Like if you pray and you ask for furniture, I think that sometimes God does send you furniture. But he's not wrong. Like there are some times where you pray for furniture and God sends you trees and expects you to do the work to get what it is that you're asking for. So I don't know. I think we need to like read the Bible, not just read the Bible. But I found that little ditty and I thought that that was interesting. And I felt like sharing because that's the whole point of this channel was I have all of these little writings all over the place and I wanted to just put them. They don't really string together in any kind of chronological order or any kind of order that makes any kind of sense because my brain is so random and scattered and crazy. So anytime I just come across one, I just wanted to put it out and let other people hear it because maybe it's helpful to you. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just in a hotel room just blabbering for no reason. But I don't know. I thought that that was interesting to process, to realize that when you read the Bible, you really have to think about it. You can't just read it and make assumptions. You have to use deductive reasoning and you have to think about what it is that God is actually saying. Because otherwise we hang all our hopes and dreams on something and then it never shows up and then we blame God for it. And I think that's basically what I'm trying to say is I would bring this scripture to God over and over and over again, and I would cry hysterically, and I would beg, and I would plead, and I would think, God, why aren't you doing this? But it says right in the verse why he wasn't doing it, because I just didn't bother to read the fine print. That was not even fine print. It was in bold letters, and I still didn't bother to read it. But at age 40, I've decided to read it and understand it, and now it makes sense. So hopefully it also makes sense to you. And hopefully, we all collectively stop blaming God for things that are not his fault. I think that that's helpful. I think that's important. He says it out loud in English. In the print, we just have to read it and we have to acknowledge it. Love and stuff. I will talk to you the next time I find a random thing. Okay, bye.